The morning sun was just beginning to spread its amber fingers across the pavement when Jack Turner, 90 years old and wearing the kind of calm only decades of quiet resilience could forge, stepped out of the passenger side of his granddaughter's dusty blue sedan. His steps were slow but sure, cane tapping rhythmically as he made his way toward the fuel pump. Inside the convenience store, Brenda Turner, 27, browsed for a bottle of water and a protein bar. Quick stop, then on to the family's cabin for a much-needed weekend away. Jack had insisted on pumping the gas. "Let an old soldier earn his ride," he said with a half-grin earlier, the kind that softened the creases of his weathered face. Then the calm was cracked. A sharp screech of tires pulled attention toward a second car skidding into the station. An old muscle car, engine guttural, windows down, heavy bass thundering. Behind the wheel was Matt Foster, 23, already flushed and erratic, the stench of cheap alcohol trailing behind him. In the passenger seat, three younger boys hooted, laughed, elbows flung out, barely masking their own nerves, the kind of laughter that dared others not to challenge them. Matt always used the far left pump. It was his pump. But today, Jack was there. Without turning down the music, Matt shoved his door open with theatrical force. The metal creaked as he climbed out, sunglasses low on his nose. He didn't speak first. He loomed. Tall, wiry, breath sour with beer and whatever else rode his bloodstream that morning. "Move your bucket, old man," he sneered. Jack looked up, calm but firm, and pointed to an open pump across the lot. "Plenty of space there. This one's taken." A puff of mocking laughter escaped Matt's chest. "You deaf? I said move." And then, with the arrogance of someone who had never faced true consequence, he gave Jack a shove. It wasn't a hard shove by any measure, but at 90, with a cane in one hand and balance reliant on muscle memory built in Korea and Vietnam, it was enough. Jack stumbled backward, his back catching the edge of a low advertisement sign. His cheekbone scraped sharply against the plastic corner. A trail of red followed. The music blared on as the boys climbed out of the car, circling. One laughed, mimicking Jack's fall with cartoonish exaggeration. Another snapped a photo. Jack, breath shallow, reached for his cane, but his hand trembled. Brenda was already moving. Through the glass, she saw it all, heard the mockery muffled through the store door. She shoved past a man holding a coffee, bolted outside, and shoved her way into the ring of grinning boys. "Get away from him!" she shouted, arms shielding her grandfather. Matt chuckled. "Touchy, touchy. Maybe you want to join him on the ground?" One of the others reached out and grabbed at Brenda's arm. That was the mistake, because in that moment, the past roared awake. Jack's mind flashed, not to the gas station, but a damp jungle clearing. An ambush. Sergeant Morgan screaming for cover. A younger Jack leaping forward, knocking Morgan out of harm's way with a burst of motion. Here, now. He had no rifle, no radio, just instinct. With one hand, he grabbed the car keys from his pocket, and without a second thought, hurled them directly at Matt's face. They spun, silver and sudden. Matt flinched, caught the impact along his cheekbone, just below the eye. It wasn't enough to wound, but it stung, enough to ignite fury. Matt cursed and reached behind his back, pulling out a folding knife from beneath his belt. And that was when everything changed. Matt's face darkened. No more swagger. Now only wounded ego and fury. He reached back and pulled a short blade from beneath his shirt, small but sharp and twitching with threat. "You want to play hero, old man?" he spat. "Let's see what that gets you." Gasps rippled from the store entrance. Staff, already on edge, moved to the back office. One of them was on the phone with dispatch, voice low but urgent. "Please hurry. There's a knife. It's Jack. You know Jack. Brenda's here too. Yes, the nurse. Please." Brenda didn't back down. She positioned herself between Jack and the knife, her voice trembling but fierce. "Touch him again, and you'll have to go through me." The punks flinched, not because of her, but because the energy shifted. Out by pump number 5, a different sound entered the space. The rumble of engines. Diesel, heavy duty, no rush in their rhythm. 4 logging trucks turned into the station, one after another. Their trailers high, shadows long in the morning sun. They didn't honk. They didn't flash lights. They just parked, deliberately, 2 in front of the exit, 2 across the edge of the fueling area. Out of the lead truck stepped Paul Rodriguez, mid-40s, barrel chest, arms of a man who'd turned wrenches since he was a teen. His boots landed with authority. Paul squinted toward the gathering, eyes catching sight of Jack and Brenda, his brow furrowed, not in confusion, but recognition. Jack Turner, the vet who'd served with his father, a man he'd seen only once a year at a memorial service, never missed it, and now he was on the ground, bleeding. Paul didn't speak to the punks right away. Instead, he walked past the trucks and spoke low into his CB, alerting the other drivers to hold exit until I say otherwise. Matt noticed him now. "You got a problem?" he snapped, the knife still in his grip. His lip curled upward, defiant, his eyes bloodshot. Paul didn't blink. "Put the knife down. Leave the girl. Step away from the old man." His voice wasn't a shout, but it carried like the weight of mountains. One of the younger punks faltered. "Come on, man. This ain't worth it." But Matt's pride was swollen, unnatural, fueled by ego and chemical courage. He stepped forward toward Paul, raising the blade. That's when they appeared. 2 figures at the far side of the lot, on foot, steady pace, uniformed. Officers. They'd parked far enough not to be heard. Now they approached silently, one hand already on a holstered weapon, the other signaling calm. "Matthew James Doyle," Officer Albert Montana said evenly, voice as cold as the blade. "Drop the weapon. Now." Matt froze. The younger punks didn't wait for the rest. One sprinted toward the rear alley. Another bolted between 2 trucks. One trucker caught him by the hoodie and held him until the second officer arrived. Matt blinked, realizing too late how badly this had gone. His hand hesitated. Paul didn't move, but 2 other truckers came behind him now, quiet shadows. Matt turned to flee. Paul's arm moved first. One rough grip closed on the wrist holding the knife. The weapon clattered to the ground. Matt staggered, caught now between fear and fury. Officer Montana closed the gap, cuffs clicking tight before Matt could utter a protest. His partner retrieved the knife, bagged it. Behind them, Brenda knelt again at Jack's side. Her voice cracked with anger and gratitude both. "You all right?" she asked again. Jack didn't answer right away. He looked up at the sky, exhaled long. Then he whispered, just for her, "I've had worse, but never from kids who should know better." She nodded. "Let's clean that up." Softly, behind them, the truckers began to move the rigs back to proper fueling lanes. The gas station, slowly, was returning to normal. But something had changed, and as Officer Montana led Matt to the squad car, he passed Jack with a subtle nod. "We'll need a statement," he said, his tone carrying more than just procedure. There was respect in it, an unspoken salute. Jack, steadying himself as Brenda dabbed the bruised side of his cheek with gauze from her kit, gave a nod. "Superficial," she whispered, concern lining her words, but calm in her hands, the hands of a trained nurse and a granddaughter standing tall in defense of the man who taught her what dignity meant. Rodriguez lingered nearby, arms folded, his rig behind him casting a shadow over the gas station lot. The other truckers stood just as firm, saying nothing, but their silence was louder than sirens. They hadn't come for a show. They came because it was right. Montana walked back toward the cruiser, but just before he entered, a compact local news van rolled up, the logo painted faintly across the side. Channel 8, Tri-County Beat. A young reporter in jeans and a jacket hopped out, microphone in hand. "We got a tip about a convoy block-in?" she asked. "Looks like there's more to this story." The officers exchanged a look. They knew what those old gas station cameras could show. And for once, it was all crystal clear. A flagrant act, witnesses, footage, and a veteran whose only act had been to stand his ground. This wouldn't disappear in paperwork. Montana turned slightly and looked at Jack. "It's your story, sir," he said. Are you ready to tell it? Jack, leaning gently on Brenda's arm, straightened just enough. He looked at the gathered crowd, the officers, the truckers who didn't know him personally, but knew what mattered. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't grandstand. He just said, "Good to know that when trouble rises, some still stand on the right side of it." The officer's cruiser door slammed softly behind Matt, now handcuffed and sullen. His earlier bravado had drained into silence, his eyes darting from the reporter's camera to the still-gathered truckers. One of them, a heavy-set man with grey in his beard, folded his arms and looked on without a word. Not judgment, not cruelty, just the still weight of disappointment. Brenda sat beside her grandfather on the bench outside the gas station, wrapping a bandage gently across his cheek. The antiseptic had stung, but he hadn't flinched. She looked into his face. Worn, yes, but steady. "You okay?" she asked, brushing a bit of dust from his collar. He gave a small nod. "Had worse in Vietnam," he murmured, half smiling. Officer Montana approached them again. "Sir, the station cameras captured everything. We've pulled the feed, and our dispatch is gathering witness statements." He looked toward Brenda. "You too, ma'am, if you're willing." Brenda nodded. Every word. Rodriguez and the other truckers stayed behind, arms crossed, refusing to leave until the police were done. Their engines idled low in the background like a steady drumbeat. For a moment, that sound replaced the tension with something sturdier, a quiet solidarity. The Channel 8 reporter, microphone in hand, carefully approached. "Would you be comfortable saying a few words for the community, sir?" she asked Jack. He hesitated, then looked at Brenda. Her nod was subtle, almost like a push forward. "I served," Jack began slowly, his voice dry but steady. 30 years between Korea and Vietnam. I don't need recognition, but today reminded me that dignity isn't a medal. It's what people give each other and how they act. The reporter didn't interrupt, sensing the weight behind the words. Jack continued, "This country's backbone. It isn't made in marble buildings or speeches. It's made in hands like theirs." He motioned to the truckers, standing by their rigs, still on watch. "People who show up when it counts." One of the truckers tipped his cap quietly. Another looked down, his expression unreadable. "Thank you, Mr. Turner," the reporter said quietly. "The community will want to hear this." As the crowd slowly thinned, Montana returned to his cruiser and glanced at the small stack of statements his partner had gathered. "Looks like we've got enough to hold Matt on multiple counts. Assault, attempted battery, possession, and likely more." Rodriguez finally stepped over to Jack and offered a broad hand. "You remember my father, Luis Rodriguez." Jack's brows furrowed briefly before lighting in recognition. "Good man. Gulf War, right?" "Yeah," Rodriguez said, nodding. "He always said if he ever went down, he'd want you by his side. Figured I owed you one." Jack smiled faintly. "You paid it forward." As the sun rose, the gas station resumed its normal hum. A few locals lingered near the pumps, casting long glances toward Jack, Brenda, and the parked cruiser. Respect lingered in the air, heavy, quiet, unspoken. It wasn't the kind that came from ceremony. It came from action. Brenda dabbed at the last of the dried blood on Jack's cheek. He winced slightly, but only because her hands were tender. She checked his bandage one final time before brushing his shoulder gently, her eyes moist with a storm held back. "You always said war left scars that don't bleed," she whispered. "But this one, it bled." Jack didn't answer right away. He looked around at the station, back to its quiet rhythm. A woman filled her tank. A man sipped coffee near the tire inflator. A dog barked from the open window of a nearby pickup. Life had resumed. But the silence was richer now, deeper. Something had shifted. He turned to Rodriguez. "What you did," Jack said, voice steady but low, "was more than a gesture." Rodriguez shrugged. "You stood for men like my dad. He never forgot that. Neither did I." A small nod. A handshake. Firm. Both hands meeting like iron forged from different fires but meant to hold. Brenda offered warm coffee to each of the truckers. "It's the least we can do," she said, "for standing with us." One of the men, taller and rougher than the rest, held his cup like something sacred. "Didn't do it for thanks," he muttered. "Did it because it was right." Montana approached one last time. His pad was tucked into his vest now. The work done, the facts recorded. But his face held something softer. "You've got a community behind you, Jack. You ever need anything, we're here." Jack saluted him, slow and deliberate. The kind of salute that came not from protocol, but from a place that knew the weight behind it. Brenda smiled faintly, eyes on her grandfather. "You've still got it?" Jack gave a soft laugh. "Still got some of it." They turned toward the car. Jack moved slowly, deliberately, not out of weakness, but to make each step matter. Brenda opened the door for him, and he settled into the seat with a sigh, part weariness, part peace. As she rounded the car to the driver's side, she paused, caught by a glimmer on the ground. A small piece of Jack's keychain, snapped in the scuffle, had been kicked to the edge of the pump lane. She picked it up carefully, brushing the dust away. A worn dog tag. She slid into the driver's seat and handed it over. Jack took it, thumbed it softly. "That one's from Nam," he said. "Lost friends on both sides of that number." Brenda gripped the steering wheel, her throat tightening. They were watching today. I think they'd be proud. Jack tucked the tag into his jacket pocket, resting his hand over it. "Maybe," he whispered. "But pride doesn't last. Doing what's right, that's what stays." She started the engine. The car eased out of the station, the truckers standing quietly as they left, hats lowered in respect. Behind them, the gas station returned to its regular rhythm, but it would never quite be the same again. The afternoon slackened as sunlight warmed the air into a gentle haze. At the gas station, life resumed around Jack and Brenda's departure, but their moment of justice lingered in the quiet hum of returning routine. Mats of grass, dust, and scattered gravel carried the weight of what had occurred. A 90-year-old man shoved and defended, a reckoning born from courage. Across town, the police station's door clanged shut. Inside, Matt sat handcuffed in an interrogation room, his swagger evaporated like soot in rain. His eyes darted to the steel window, where the reflection showed a man smaller than he'd ever felt. An officer called out his full name. Matt flinched at the formality, Matthew James Doyle, only to face the facts. Assault, menacing with a weapon, hate-based charges. The room smelled of bleach and responsibility. He tried to speak, but the words lodged in his throat. Across town, Jack and Brenda walked home together, Brenda's arm steady beneath his. The afternoon sun warmed their backs. Not victory, just forward motion. A week had passed since the incident at the gas station, and yet for Matt Doyle, time hadn't moved at all. The walls of the county holding facility felt tighter by the hour. Word had spread like wildfire. An assault on a 90-year-old veteran wasn't just a crime here. It was treason to the very spirit of the town. In the prison's visitation wing, under the buzzing light of a Tuesday afternoon, a new visitor's name was called. Matt raised his head from where he sat hunched. The officer didn't give him a choice. He was led to a reinforced room with a thick plexiglass wall and 2 phones. On the other side, a man already sat waiting. Leather vest worn smooth by the years, arms bearing the weight of battles not always fought in war but on highways and broken bar stools. Razor-gray stubble, thick, unreadable eyes. A patch on his chest read, "Deacon." Below that, Veterans MC. Matt sat. The door locked behind him with a cold finality. The man didn't pick up the phone immediately. He just looked at Matt, head slightly tilted as if taking in every inch of him. Not just the clothes and haircut, but the soul underneath. It made Matt squirm. Finally, Deacon lifted the receiver. Matt hesitated, then followed. "I served," Deacon said without preamble. "I bled for that flag. And I ain't the only one. You put your hands on a man who carried his brothers off the field in Vietnam." Matt blinked. "I didn't know." "You didn't care," Deacon interrupted. "That's worse." He leaned forward, knuckles whitening. "You thought you were a lion? You ain't even earned your claws." Matt stayed silent. There was no audience here. No friends behind him. No exit but time. "We take care of our own," Deacon continued. "Not with fists, with code, with remembrance. You mock that. You don't just hurt Jack. You cut at every man and woman who didn't come home." Matt's eyes lowered. Shame crept into his voice. "I was high. That ain't an excuse. That's a sentence." Deacon stood slowly. His height cast a long shadow on the floor. "You've got time now. Use it. Change something, because you'll find this world has more Jack Turners watching than you think." With that, Deacon turned and walked out. No threats, no spectacle, just gravity, and a silence heavier than violence. Matt didn't speak for the rest of the day. Respect isn't given by age or power. It's earned in moments when others stand by your side. Today, we remember. Always forward. If this story resonated with you, like and subscribe to honor more unsung heroes. Tell us where you're watching from, and comment below to honor someone in your life who served or stood strong in silence. The best way to honor their memory is to keep listening. Click on the suggested video now, and we'll walk together through another untold chapter of courage and sacrifice.